Welcome to Bass Talk with Hagen and Hayes. Today's episode is very special for Susan and I, and we're pleased to welcome two very special guests. Our theme today is How Perfect is Your Life Living with a Bassist?
We have with us Sarah Poole, David's wife. Sarah, tell me, how perfect is your life? How great is it?
Well, let's put it this way.
Tell the truth, my darling,
I will
please.
tell the truth, my darling. Yes, I met David at the Royal College of Music, and I didn't really know that I'd signed up for this, to be honest.
So this upgrade.
This upgrade,
Yes.
definitely,
Yes.
Absolutely an upgrade. Yeah. Oh, gosh.
Is that it?
That's it.
That's how perfect life is with me. Wow. I expected a little bit more, if I'm honest. Susan,
Yes.
please talk to your husband and ask him how perfect his life is living with you.
So we have my husband, Kevin Connors. So tell me, how awesome is this?
Well, it's just wonderful.
They know all the right things to
That's
say.
fantastic.
Step one, have
Yes.
the best answers.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, I think life with us is perfect, if I'm honest.
I mean, they get to carry things for us and
Exactly.
hold doors for us.
Attend bass recitals.
I mean, who wouldn't want to attend bass recitals?
Conventions.
Conventions. They're the
How many
best.
times has Sarah heard the Dittersdorf Concerto?
Too many.
No, she said she liked it, I'm sure.
Kevin
I'm
walks
sure
around
she-
the house singing the Bassists Concerto regularly.
Fantastic. We're so lucky to have them.
Yeah.
No,
They're lucky
the other
to
way.
have us.
Thank you, Susan.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's a blessing in their lives.
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, Sarah, could be bored with her life of vocal music, all this beautiful repertoire written for voice. And Kevin's a clarinet player with Mozart and Brahms and all these composers that have written for clarinet. But
I think sometimes, actually, with the beautiful vocal music, I suddenly hear a version of it for double bass.
oh, she's been converted.
Well, I'm not
No.
sure about converted.
She does scream. That shouldn't be played on the bass. Many times.
Oh gosh! No, I hear a lot of double bass music, which is originally vocal music, and
Right.
it's actually rather lovely to hear it transcribed onto such a beautiful instrument.
Would you like to share with our audience the book you said you'd write?
The one that starts, if only I'd known.
Yes,
Yes.
that one.
Yes,
Yeah.
as I say at the beginning, I didn't know that I'd signed up for all this life of excitement and thrill.
Perfection.
But no, seriously, I have said to David on many occasions, I should write a book which would be entitled "If Only I'd Known." But having
Because
said
it is
that,
for life, really, isn't it?
oh yes,
Yeah.
it's a bit like the
My love.
It's a bit like owning a puppy dog, you have it for eternity, so
Wait, the bassist or the bass?
both probably.
The funny thing was our daughter, Sophie, who's now, I think, 32, her very first word was bass. And she
Yeah.
used to share her bedroom with two basses. And she used to stand in her cot and point and say, bass, bass. And she used to go around to her friends. And she couldn't believe that their bedrooms didn't have basses in them.
I bet she felt sorry for them.
I think she did. She recognised how lucky she was. So
Yes.
not only is my wife lucky, my daughter is lucky as well.
Yes.
Two for the price of one.
See, you're just
Isn't it?
making everyone happy everywhere you go.
Exactly. And you're the same. You're the
well,
same.
Of course, sharing the joy, right?
Fantastic. And Kevin's
Well,
smiling. Please, Kevin.
I've just become lucky enough to be able to cart around the bass, to be trusted enough
This week.
to move your bass around. So
This week is the first week that we've been married now 15 years. And it's the first time I said, okay, we had 3 basses we were carrying around a lot this week. And you would carry one, David.
Yes.
I would carry one. And there's a third one sitting there. And I said to Kevin, oh, can you just take this bass somewhere? And so he started carting the basses
And it's
around.
marginally heavier than a clarinet.
Just a little.
Just marginally.
And only a little more awkward, just
Yes.
slightly.
Yeah, it's quite easy, I think.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of things about bases and airports. There was a particular occasion where David was going to Copenhagen with some of his students, and we had a bit of snow. Of course, all the motorways closed down because they thought this was, really
Armageddon.
bad. Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, we managed to crawl literally in the car to Heathrow, and David dropped me off with the bass, and I have to stand there waiting with a big hard bass case and suitcases, and anyway, he went off to park the car in the parking lot, and when he came back, he was really long time, and there'd been a fire in one of the car parks.
Oh no.
So of course all the bus connections that were coming from the car park back to Heathrow weren't running. So he came running in, and he just
I was
threw.
a little bit slimmer in those days. I'm not sure.
Weren't we all?
I'm not sure I could run these days.
We have a runner at home that was called it's called Linford Christie, and he isn't that. So anyway, David came running in, and he gave me the money that he had in his wallet, and the bass had been taken at that particular point, and he then said, right, he said, get on the plane. I'll see you there.
Because I had to wait for my students.
Because
They were
stuck
stuck in the traffic
snow.
as well.
Oh gosh, you weren't all together yet.
No.
So Sarah checked the bass in on her ticket.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the flight was the flight leaving was quite imminent. So I said, yeah, there you are. You go, and we'll be on the next flight.
So I jumped on the plane and flew off to Copenhagen. And when I got there, Mette Hanskov was there to meet us.
Right.
But before I met her, I had to get the bass through baggage
Yeah.
pickup.
Right.
And that flight case didn't have wheels.
No.
At the time.
Oh, poor Sarah.
And I'm only 5'1.5" or something, 5'2", I think actually. But anyway, David wasn't anywhere to be seen. So there's me with a double bass case, suitcases, hand luggage, and I was trying to get the bass. They sent it round the carousel.
Oh my god.
So there's me holding on to. I was
pull it
trying
off.
to hold it. So I managed to get off the carousel, which seemed to be going at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
When you were
I was
dragging
trying to
behind
say,
it.
And anyway, I managed to get it off the carousel, and I managed to stand it up, and I go all the other stuff, and there's me trying to wheel a big double bass without wheels, and the suitcases.
Oh no.
And I dragged it along for a certain amount of time, and I thought, I can't do this anymore.
Right.
And a young man came over to me, and he said, "Excuse me, would you like a hand?" And I said, "Oh, that would be so nice." He said, "Is this yours?" And I said, "No, it's my husband's." And he looked at me, and without a word of a lie, he said, "I would divorce him."
Oh no.
So anyway,
And you exchanged phone numbers.
he helped me through to the main arrivals, at which point I managed to get, we put it on a trolley.
Okay.
So I was holding on. Well, it's bigger than me.
Right.
It looked like the bass had arms.
You can't see in front
You
of
couldn't
it.
see in front of it. So I
Right.
was stuck behind it, and I could see Mette through the handle of the bass. And anyway, I got there, and she said, Sarah, where is David?" And I said, "He's still in England." "Oh, you're so funny." And I said, no, he really is. So anyway, she said, "Well, when's he coming?" I said, "He's on the next flight out, apparently." But it was one of those trips which sort of started, and it was thick snow and everything, and it was, oh gosh,
Fun start to that
a
trip.
fun start to the trip. But it was actually a really successful trip.
And life has been pretty perfect ever since, my darling,
Absolutely,
isn't it?
yeah. No, I've been very fortunate. David and I have been in an awful lot of places, so we've travelled and worked together, and actually that's been really super.
And he writes music for the two of you to play together, which is
Does,
great.
and he writes fabulous music,
Yes.
and I think we when we rehearse, sometimes it's a really easygoing rehearsal.
Yep.
Like everybody, we want to get it exactly right, and sometimes there are sort of little moments where we could kill each other.
Well, now he's composing a piece for me to dance to.
I know. How lucky are you, Kevin?
I'm an amateur dancer. And it should be
Well documented here.
nice, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You've got all the shapes.
And now we have it on record that this piece will be
Exactly.
you will be dancing the premiere, Kevin.
Do you know, when I write for myself, or I write for Sarah, often it's last minute.
Right.
Or I finish it last minute. And I don't typeset it, I just use hand copied. It's
Yeah.
usually like hieroglyphics.
Yeah.
Because I know exactly what
You know
I'm
what you
doing,
want.
whatever. And Sarah, she is fantastic, I have to say. Because the Flight of Birds we've done on
Right.
this tour originally was for solo bass and soprano. And I just I told her the notes she could improvise around. And I just used to say, when I nod my head, sing. And that was the only instruction she had.
Yeah.
The words are brilliant.
I love an R.
Thank
don't
you, thank you. It took me a long time to come up with those. Well, that's my genius, Kevin. Really, it's difficult to come up with R, isn't it?
It's like poetry.
Ooh, it's like poetry.
Ooh, no, that's not quite right. No, not quite right. Ah.
But I think that's a particularly a lovely song, actually.
It's beautiful.
And the fact that now it's arranged for two double basses too is really
Makes it so
special.
much
Well,
fun.
you've composed it too. That's,
Well, I suppose I
it's
have
a
in a
little bit of
way, yes,
improvisation.
because I've done the soprano part, which
Yeah.
David hadn't written down because it was
Improvised.
really improvised
Yeah.
to start with. But now it's got shape. I do the same things and it works really well.
It
and
sounds beautiful.
Yeah. It's
And the
a
other
lovely
piece, Words of Da Vinci, was the same. I'd written it down, it's hand copied, and it was words that actually Leonardo da Vinci said. And it was like a recitative.
Yeah.
So the bass is just holding chords.
Right.
And I'd got the words, and I'd said these are the notes to use.
Yeah.
And
It's
then
quite
Sarah
modal.
just improvised around it.
Nice.
And it worked really well. And again, that was last minute. I think I finished it the day before we flew out to Albania, if I'm honest. Because Sarah's a quick learner, and Dritan Ghani, who I worked with, again, he's a quick learner.
Right.
So I just know I can do that.
Yeah.
And I think we rehearsed it the day after we got there, premiered it the day after. So sometimes I'm a bit last minute, if I'm honest.
Sometimes you have to be.
Yeah, sometimes I'm really good and I get things finished well in advance of any deadline. And sometimes I sort of wait until the deadline
Right.
before I start writing.
Yeah.
I told you, I think, about Passchendaele.
Yes.
And I don't think I've ever told Joe. It was dedicated to Joe Prindle, who's one of my ex-students. And he was just leaving Wells Cathedral School. And I thought it would be really nice to mark that with a concert, music for two basses. And then I had another student leaving, Matt Green. And so Matt came to play as well. And Joe's dad had a string quartet
Right.
down in Cornwall. So we decided to combine resources and put it on a concert. And I decided to write a piece called Passchendaele, a meditation, which was totally in memory of the Battle of Passchendaele in the First World War. And it's for two basses, string quartet. And the week of the premiere, Joe's dad phoned me and he said, "Okay, Passchendaele." I said, "Well, I thought the programme was full. We probably won't do it. We'll do it next time." "Oh, no. We've advertised it. We've got to do it." "Oh, go, no problem, Chris, no problem." So I put the phone down. I hadn't written a note down. I'd composed it in my head, but I hadn't written a note down at all. And I thought, I don't tell him. So I spent 2 days just sitting there writing all this thing down. Then I had to orchestrate it for string quartet and then typeset it.
Yeah.
And I emailed it through, I think, on the Wednesday. And I think we drove down on the Thursday and we rehearsed it. And then we premiered it on the Saturday. And it had the best reception of any piece of the concert, if I'm honest. And I think it's had more, I think audiences like it more than anything I've ever written.
I think it's just so beautiful and so sincere. You know, and the idea, the narrative of these two soldiers walking through the mists of the trenches and no man's land, and the vision of you can see it in your mind's eye. Well, I can. You can see it in the mind's eye. These trees that have been decimated by fire, the thick mud, and the sort of nonsense of the whole thing.
Right.
And these two soldiers meeting. I always think that they're on opposite sides, and they meet and they talk together.
Find some common ground.
Yeah, and actually in those last sort of 2/3 of the way through, you get that conversation between bass one and bass two,
Yes.
and it's like they are talking to one another.
I feel that way too.
And then there's this sort of moment of peace between the two parties, and you can hear the calmness, and it sort of all just disappears into nothing. And it's like David would say that there's a very fine veil coming down,
Right.
and it's just so emotive and beautiful.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
At the very end, you know how it fades away. I kind of imagine that's when the two soldiers are just walking away from each other and kind of
Yeah.
fading back into the mist.
It's
a little
almost
bit.
like they're just ghosts, and their spirits have just gone somewhere else. And there's I think it's a last maybe 6 bars. There is one moment, I wait for it, and every time it gets me. there's this moment where the basses just change and move together.
Yeah.
And it's a sort of dissonance, but it's an absolutely beautiful dissonance.
The E against the F.
And it just hits the heart.
Yeah.
It's really
It really
special.
does.
And then
It's
during
really
lockdown,
special.
you asked me about doing an arrangement for two basses.
Yeah.
So I went back and I had a look, and I thought, oh right, I can do this. So I had to take out some measures and
Yeah, because they're different. The version
Yes.
with piano, I haven't done the string quartet version,
Yeah.
but the two bass version or the two bass and piano, they're different.
the one with piano is the same as string quartet.
Okay.
But the version we played a lot this week is for two basses.
Yeah.
So I had to take out some bits, expand others, rewrite.
Yeah.
But I'm really pleased with it.
Yeah.
And audiences seem to like it, don't
They
they?
love it. They love
Yeah.
it. But it's funny because when we were playing both versions during this concert tour,
Yes.
I'd have to be like, okay, this is the one with no piano, and just remember what that entailed.
And it's interesting because I know both versions.
Of course, yeah.
And I hear the piano part anyway.
And there are spots where I
You,
really
Yes.
you
do
can
too.
hear
Yes.
it. And
Almost like the ghost in the mist.
absolutely,
It's kind of
it's like
interesting.
it's like ghosting moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just beautiful.
But playing the
Yeah.
string quartet is different again, because with the piano you have a percussive sound,
Right.
but with the string quartet you don't.
Little soft, like gentler
Yes.
edges.
It's completely different. And at the end, it's when we play the string quartet, it's for two basses and solo viola. And that was Joe's dad. He was the
Nice.
viola player. So
That's
the three
really
of us
Mm.
just ended the piece.
Yeah, I love that.
And also with three string instruments, you can go down to silence. On a piano, you
Easier.
can't.
It's harder. It's
Yes.
much harder.
It's really but I like both of them. But I think the version with piano I like even better.
Mm-hmm.
It has a different feel
Yeah.
completely. But I was so pleased with that piece.
Yeah.
So,
So were the audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
well, we've had nice comments, haven't we?
Yeah.
This week.
We have. Have you
Well-
had some good comments?
It's just amazing that this is the first podcast in person.
I know.
Oh gosh, yes.
Oh,
of
it is?
course, yeah.
We're all in the same
Wow.
room. So for those of you listening, 4 of us are sitting at Kevin and my dining room table here for the first time ever.
Oh, I hadn't realised it. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I
That's
feel
first
like
time.
I've known you both forever.
Forever, right?
And it's just so nice, to find. I mean, when we saw you at the airport, it was always like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this is really
It's for
happened.
real.
Yeah, this is actually real.
I
This is
remember
happening.
thinking, you're much taller than I thought you were.
My mom had said to me, now, David and Sarah, are they tall? Are they short? What do you think? I said, I have no idea.
Because we're always sitting down when
Right.
we record.
And I've seen you play, but I don't know how high out your end
No,
pin is,
no.
so I can't put it in proportion to the height of the bass.
And you've only ever seen my magic hand come through with a cup of coffee, haven't you?
I see you lean over David's shoulder or your magic hand, and you guys see Kevin kind of crouching down to say hello on the computers. And it's funny because part of it feels like when you landed, 10 days ago? That part feels like a month ago.
It does.
But the week of concerts feels like it just started and it's already over.
Yes, yeah.
Gone so quickly
You want to
this
do it
week.
all over again.
I do.
It's amazing.
I
Yes.
do. I said to Kevin, can't we just extend this another week? We'll bring Sophie over so she doesn't miss you.
Yeah, and Tom.
Yeah, and
And
Tom,
Tom,
absolutely.
yeah,
And just keep it going.
Yeah. Well, I think it's brilliant actually because there's been so much we found out this week about each other.
Right.
And, and also, as you know, I'm really keen on ancestry and everything.
Right.
And to find out that my 2 times great-grandmother was American, I had no idea.
That's why
until this week.
That's why we get along so well.
And maybe.
I think we'll still be friends when you go back
Maybe.
to England.
I hope so.
You sound so much.
I do remember
There's
that
no chance of that, is there? Really?
the day you were flying here, I said to Kevin, oh my God, what if we don't enjoy playing together? What if we don't enjoy spending time together? What if
we don't like each
Yeah,
other?
what if what seemed like a great friendship across the ocean?
Yeah.
Now you come over here and we're all like, oh,
could
bad
ruin it all.
idea.
But our rehearsals were just like our Zoom
They were,
meetings.
yeah.
Yes.
We laughed
Yes.
so much.
Yes.
And worked so well together, and it was just like slotting in with friends, wasn't it?
It was.
It was so
There
easy.
wasn't a lot of discussion.
No.
Just a couple critical moments where it's like, how does that go?
Yeah.
But really, it just sort of could kind of look and nod and figure out what each other were all doing. It was
Absolutely.
I think that was nice because we played a lot of repertoire this week,
Oh, we
and
did.
we rehearsed more than we actually performed.
We did.
I think
We
a
did.
few pieces.
Yeah, there are a few pieces we didn't perform.
But it's been really nice to feel how the performances have grown.
Yes.
The pieces have changed over the
Yes.
10 days.
Yeah.
Really,
It
it's
was
been
also a
nice.
lovely opportunity to have your students and
Oh, they
to
loved
have
it.
David bring Holly with
Yeah.
him from England, and for you to play together. I mean, Snegudderl was just magnificent.
It was so much fun.
It was a great piece.
And my students keep emailing me, thank you so much. This was so much fun to meet Mr. Hayes and get to work with him. And, it's a nice exchange of ideas. And we play similarly.
Yes.
It's not radically
completely.
different.
Yeah.
We have very similar teaching styles in many ways. But having the same concept come from a different person can sometimes really click in a different way with a student. And, sometimes I don't bring a lot of people in because I think, are they going to totally change everything I've been working on with this student? That scares me. It's not that I want them to only hear my way, but I want them to have a good understanding of one way before they learn 5 other ways. Like, otherwise it gets confusing.
Yeah.
And I knew anything that David had to say, I would be absolutely in agreement
That's
with.
because we've talked
Yes.
endlessly about
Just a little. Like a few minutes
No,
here
it's
and
endlessly. we have talked a lot about teaching, haven't we, and our
Yes.
approach and things.
Yes.
And we are very much on the same page, which is really nice. I loved teaching your students. I loved working with them.
They loved it.
They were so nice, and they had a great approach, and they really want to learn.
They do.
They have
They're
a nice open approach.
so receptive to suggestions, and I don't like to say criticism with them because I don't feel like I'm criticizing them. I just feel like I'm trying to help them. But they are completely responsive to any suggestions that people give. I very rarely at Berkeley will have a student that just says outright no, or I disagree. Once in a while, but not frequently. And those are the ones that usually don't come back for another semester. And that's fine. But yeah, we've all 4 of us have gotten to spend a lot of time together. and-
Well, I've been so grateful to Kevin driving me around. It's been lovely. His beautiful car.
He's an expert with these things, and Kevin's very patient with me and my carload of stuff that I always bring with me, and he goes through the checklist. You sure you have your bow?
Yeah.
Okay, good. You've got your bass. You've got your iPad with your music on it. All right. You have snacks.
Yes.
Do you have water?
Yeah. Well, I think I do the same for David. Even if I'm doing a concert with him, I'm the one that's there to make sure you've got everything.
In the hotel, I left my key in my room once.
Yep.
And Sarah's reminded me 15 times a day. And I got me
Well, it's better to be reminded.
It is, my darling. Thank you for that.
In fact, I've got a spare one as well. So yeah, now
I
I've
always
got
do
one
that.
too.
I
so-
always do that. But I think sometimes maybe our how perfect is your life living with a bass player. We also have a bit, and we won't normally admit it, but how grateful we are to our helpers.
Not really.
Well, these
Not him.
venues,
You know what that man said in Copenhagen?
She's still got his phone number.
They're actually Facebook friends.
well, many of the venues, they've cut the staff down to nothing. It's just the person who opens the door for
Yeah.
you and lets you in.
And they want to help, but they have a lot of things they're juggling too.
And you're bringing in 3 basses, you're bringing in music stands, and
Lights and
Yeah.
my stool and music and
it can be too much. And then you realize there's something left in the car, and you can only run back and forth so many times, and sometimes you don't feel comfortable leaving something somewhere. So it's really nice. I know you appreciate me being there. And
oh god, yeah.
To be able to help out and to go.
Yeah. Yesterday in
get
West
something
Stockbridge, when we pulled into the parking lot of the church, there were
Yes.
cars, there were people there. And so I just sort of pulled in thinking we were going to check in and say hello. Next thing I know, we're inside unpacking, and I totally hadn't thought of my car. And Kevin, after our rehearsal, said, I moved the car over. I was like, oh, I forgot. I left it in the middle of the parking lot. Because we just got there, and I wanted to introduce us to the presenters and stuff. And he's the one, even when I'm playing concertos, he's like, I'll move the car. I'll make sure that there's an extension cord. Those things that I might
Out
not.
on the sound bar.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He runs my sound when I play Simon Garcia's concerto with the amplification.
Yes.
I bring an amplifier, a mixing board, and my microphone.
Yeah.
And he'll be in charge. I can't go into the hall and hear what it sounds like.
Yeah.
I'm playing.
I know,
So-
it's similarly after concerts, or during a workshop.
Yes.
If David has been working, I mean, I just stand up and sing sort of thing, and he will be talking to people afterwards, and quite often he won't eat anything, so I just hand him a bowl of
There's
food.
the magic hand
or
again.
With a magic hand or a coffee.
Yeah.
You know, and
There are
it's,
many times I can never get.
To the reception.
Yes.
That happened
because
to
I-
us all week.
Yeah,
it
I've
was
got so many
great.
people wanting to
Because people
talk.
wanted to talk, and
Yeah.
that's so wonderful.
Yeah.
But then at the end, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
well, now you've packed up the reception. I didn't get any of that delicious looking whatever. But you, Sarah and Kevin both, did you get something to drink?
Yes.
Would
Yeah.
you like
I don't
something
think
to
you
eat?
could say no to a conversation about the bass with an audience
Well,
member.
David
yeah.
and I have said this many times. We feel like we're still evangelizing about what this incredible instrument can do, and you don't want to say like, "Oh, I'd love to talk to you, but I'd really like to go eat a cookie."
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, that might.
Maybe we should.
They might be like, "Wow, bass players are jerks." I always thought they might be. So it's you want to be not just polite. I'm excited when people have questions or have noticed things, and people notice things that I don't even think about sometimes, but I don't want to brush them off. I want to keep having them say, oh, those bass players were nice and I liked that music, and oh, maybe I'll go hear another bass concert, or my nephew wants to learn to play the bass, I'll encourage him. Anything that helps with.
There was a lady last night at the concert, and she spoke to me afterwards, and it sort of came across really quite negatively, but she didn't mean that. And she said, I didn't think I was going to enjoy the concert.
Yeah.
But I really did.
Right.
And I think she had no idea what to expect, rather than
think
she didn't
that's
think she was going to
common.
enjoy it.
Yeah.
And she said, well, I loved all the music you chose, and there were so many different styles, and I didn't know the bass could do that.
Yeah.
And
There were some of the same comments at King's Chapel.
Yes, exactly.
I heard as
Yeah.
people were leaving.
Some people would say, I wasn't really sure if I even wanted to come to this one, but I'm really glad I did.
Yes.
I think, well, I'm glad you did too. But,
Yeah.
It's great. And there are instruments that I don't know I'd want to come to a recital of, probably because I don't know much, even though I am a musician.
Well, it's surprising how many people ask me questions about the bass.
I'm so sorry, my
And I
darling.
have actually usually got the answer. But,
That's good.
That's. I
What
think,
type of questions do they ask you?
Well, why is it called a double bass?
Oh, yes.
I like to just make up a response.
Did you get a lot of questions?
I got some, and I just make up the response.
The disinformation of America. I should just have put a shirt, fake news.
But if there's nothing, if there's something I don't know about a question, then I will obviously divert them to David. But if he's got thousands of people around him
Right.
talking,
I suspect-
similarly with you,
I think though, Sarah, you probably know a lot of the answers after this time.
I think probably I know more than perhaps some bass players.
Than many
Yeah,
bass players.
I
my
bet.
darling.
Yeah,
Many bass players.
it's quite interesting because I listen to a lot of bass repertoire.
Yes, you do.
I probably listen to more bass repertoire than I perhaps do with singing, but I prefer to sing rather than to have to listen too much. But when I'm working with David, when I'm working with you, we have to understand each other.
Right.
And it's my job to know exactly what's going on and what sort of. With the Flight of Birds piece, it was Laudeth, wasn't it? And she said afterwards, because I sing that off stage, she said she couldn't believe that the sound that was coming through, she didn't realise it was me singing. She thought it was something that you were doing on the bass.
You were able to blend your voice so well so that it sounded just like another bass.
And it just sounded, and it sounded...
we're playing high
It
up.
sounded like another effect.
I just thought it was a rude audience member in the back of the audience.
Kevin wanted to turn and put a finger over his mouth and go, shh.
That annoying person in the background who's talking.
There's
Will you
always
please be quiet while they're trying to play?
Why is she singing while they're playing? Back of the church. Back of the hall.
We have to put up with a lot, Kevin.
It
We
is another
really do.
effect, and that's really, and it's very special, and that, it's not often you can create something as gorgeous as that.
I think without your understanding the bass the way you do, though, someone might come in and sing that in a way that sounds like soprano and bass or two basses rather than
a bird
sound together. We're all trying to sound like
you
birds.
You have to make it so part of, it's that magical thing of joining it all together. Yeah. And and similarly in Your Beautiful Mind, the voice doesn't do huge amounts of drama.
Right.
But you've got to blend with your two, and some people, laugh and you say, oh, I've come here to lower your ears, or because the sound is so low and deep.
Yes.
But David's, and you both do all these wonderful.
The idea with that
harmonics.
one was it's like a cushion of sound, the
Yeah,
two basses.
yeah.
It's contrapuntal,
Right.
but also chordal as well.
Yes.
And the idea is it's a cushion of sound, and you sit on the top of that.
Yeah.
And because you're much higher, and we're much more sustained, I think the two.
It sort
I
of
think the two
brings it
contrasts.
together somehow.
Yeah.
Adds a nice color.
Yes.
Well, and I
well.
also think that for these concerts, having you sing some things just sometimes you did the singer alone. You'd play things with David playing piano. It broke up the here's more double bass, which can I think make people's ears feel like they're stretching low into the land of sound.
I think actually people like the partnership of bass and voice.
I think it's
And it's very
beautiful.
interesting actually how many singers are married to bass players.
That's an
It
interesting
is a really
point.
interesting concept.
Yes. Well, we always try. We're supposed to try
To
to
sing.
sound like a
Yeah,
voice.
exactly.
And God knows you wouldn't want to hear my voice that comes out of my mouth. But I do imagine, if I could sing, here's what I would want it to sound like, and now I will put it on the bass.
Yes.
And hopefully it'll sound better than if I were singing.
Well, as far as our knowledge of the bass, there are sometimes where you're like, oh gosh, I really don't want to go in and teach today. Can you do it for me? He'll say to me as a joke, I go, well, I probably could. I just go in and I'll say, all right, try to be a marionette.
Yeah,
And-
good posture.
And
Yes.
lift
Think
your
about
elbow.
Think about your hand shape. No
Lift
big
your elbow.
bend in
Yes.
your wrist.
And these are things I can recognize
Yeah.
just from.
Yeah, you can
what
recognise
said
if
all
somebody's
along.
got a good bowing arm,
Yeah,
or
if they're being
whether it's
lazy with their
exactly,
with their left,
and the nice rounded fingers
Yes.
and the
hand and
nice
it's down too low.
the handshake.
Yeah, I think
and
Sarah and Kevin both know just by looking, sometimes even just by hearing how
I can
people's
tell
technique.
David's students they've always
Right,
got excellent
right.
handshapes.
Yeah.
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 And sometimes you see people with flappy
Oh,
fingers, and
yes.
you know that's not his student.
Right.
So I'm very proud of him
Yes.
because I think he's an exceptional teacher,
I think he is too.
exceptional player.
I loved watching you teach my students and listening to the comments in the workshops that you were making, and it was.
But I'm
great.
sure they're the same comments as you, but just with a different voice and maybe
Different voice
different
and
vocabulary.
you
With an
don't
English
have
accent.
No, he doesn't have an accent. So your my
I don't
students
have an accent,
have to
exactly.
listen to my accent, but then when you talk, they're like, finally, no accent.
So funny.
Oh God!
So today I think we've confirmed that living with a bass player is a perfect life.
Pure heaven.
Isn't it just?
Yes, and you two are very lucky. You shouldn't be laughing. But you're very lucky, and we're very lucky to have both of you.
So thank you to Sarah and Kevin for taking part in our podcast.
Thank you
And-
very much for having us.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for Bass Talk with Hagen and Hayes. Stay tuned for more. I think we'll do a little synopsis of our tours together. And thank you to our sponsors, Leatherwood Rosin and Grace Gallery. We look forward to talking to you again soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.